Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not used to walk the talk, as Eve did yesterday. Yvette, paradoxically, rather stands still, even when she's talking about cultural mobility or cultural dynamics. I'd like to present the evolution of the last few years of the Latin American social studies generated at the Centro Latinoamericano Suizo, putting emphasis on the young talents whom we meet every day at our university, and I'm glad to support, to promote, to stimulate. I start also telling a story, presenting a model, one of an outstanding student. Some of you know him, highly talented. He's called Michael Tuil. I had the privilege to supervise two of his 4 theses he wrote because he did a double degree at our University of International Affairs and Economics. In 2009 and 10, he was working on inclusive business in Latin America, and the most important and pioneering informants he had, he found, guess where, at Fundación Avina in Argentina. I recall his fascination about his meeting with the Avina representatives, already fully embarked in the inclusive business sector at that time. His thesis was very innovative, creative, because he took the new St.Gallen management model, translated it to Spanish first, and then he adapted the model to inclusive business. And the bachelor thesis was on all the small steps of changes of the adaptation. And I mean, I was joking once with the creator of the new St.Gallen management business, and I told him that besides this thesis, this bachelor thesis makes him look tired. So the thesis was called Inclusive Business in Latin America, Adaptation of the New St.Gallen Management Model of the new St.Gallen management model. The second thesis he wrote was one of his 2 master theses, and he did it in Costa Rica after 4 months, I think, of a stay in Costa Rica with Fundes, and it was co-supervised by US. And this was called Creating Shared Value, Development of the Concept and Application in Costa Rica. Then he did a second bachelor thesis in 2008, I mean a first one, supervised by Christoph Frey, who moderated the first panel yesterday. And this was the United States of South America, that was the title, Possibilities and Plausibility of an Integration of the Latin American countries. So he has the perfect profile of a proto-participant of this event, but he could not come. He wrote me from Douala, Cameroon today. I mean, he could not come today, that he has to embark right now in a big new project in Kenya, Uganda. So a terrific talent with a huge potential. Christoph Frey once commented to me, you know, within a few years, we will say we had the privilege to supervise one of the theses of this guy. So that's what he predicted. Now, I have to get... Doesn't work? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So in the meantime, I almost dare to say it has become mainstream what Michael did a few years ago. Like in the last 5 years perhaps, or 6 years, which we looked now, a young generation of researchers at the university concentrate on sustainability topics. As I said briefly yesterday in the opening, the new generation interested in Latin American studies puts sustainability issues on the very top of their research agendas, of their interests. We have counted the theses written during the last 5 years, affiliated to the Centro, with striking results, above all in the PhD 40 and in the Bachelor 63 theses. And when I say sustainability topics, this is really key in the topics, as you can see in some of the titles, some of the examples, the concrete titles. We have several theses for instance, in the crop production with small producers and their relationship to multinationals, to Swiss multinationals, ethical reflections on that. Food is a very important topic, the water of management too. There you have the 4 below, and then you have the topic of renewable energy, as we have a full professor here who is dealing with the management of renewable energy. And then it goes to until the role of art in conflict situations, etc. Impact investment is the core topic at our hub in Sao Paulo. The university has a permanent office, as most of you know, in Sao Paulo since 2010, which will be upgraded to a research institute in Sao Paulo soon. So you see that the university invests quite in Latin America. But we also expand within Switzerland through a ProDoc. This is a tailor-made program for PhD students in cooperation with other Swiss universities, among them the Graduate Institute and the Center of Development and the Environment of the University of Bern, also the Universities of Zurich and Geneva. Their governance, management, and negotiation are the 3 core research areas, treated always in a transcultural embeddedness. The same goes for our topic, as Hernando de Soto has pointed out in his essay published in the NZZ for the impact measurement and its indexes, so it's always about cultural sensitiveness. The network character is key, and culture is highly negotiable for us, very mobile. And for this I brought you some metaphors, because we always work with the picture superiority effect. So to get to new models of transculturality, of cultural sensitiveness, of international endeavors, we try to, as a starting point, to work with metaphors. One would be the mangrove tree, which replaces the traditional tree, which is static, geometric, with deeply rooted, and the mangrove is a nomad plant, so it always looks for new spaces, and the roots are moving, and it's at a border between salt and sweet water, but it's constantly moving. So this would replace the tree. And the second metaphor of a whole collection we have of metaphors would be the paravent, the folding screen, because there, if you have a cultural encounter, you can move it around. You can always have new constellations of distance. It's a little bit transparent. You see the other person, and it's a constant movement there. So this dynamic definition of culture is very important. You have one of my favorite definitions of culture in general up there. We see it as a flexible condensate of factors which have to be negotiated anew permanently. So it's a constant negotiation. You move your folding screen constantly and see the other, and that would be because with all the sustainability topic in social sciences, we always try to include transcultural reflections. There's one example. I mean, you can take our topic of a research cooperation with the Universidad de los Andes on water management, on sustainable projects in water management, and we looked especially at the scaling up process. So every scaling up process goes through different phases, through different spaces, and then of course it's always also a cultural barrier. You have to move on to another level in the scaling up process. Of course, the starting point was this project of a liter of light, and then we looked at several really admirable and impressive projects. In Colombia, just right now, an assistant of mine is in Colombia with a young researcher of Universidad de los Andes, and they're looking at a new case in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, just during these days. And here you have this explanation that it's also a culture-sensitive process. And of course, in the water sector, talking of cultural sensitiveness, you have to watch the local symbolisms of water, the local attitude to waters. We have this example of an extreme abundance of water in Colombia in the Chocó and scarcity in La Guajira, so the attitude towards water, of course, is a different one. And then it's even more demanding to see how in the Chocó this paradox of extreme abundance but of lack of access to drinking water, how this is managed and what are the implications. Of course, there's also the indigenous, the Afro-Colombian influences which you have to take into account. So the symbolic value of water is a very strong one, and you have to observe it. You can even analyze the iconographic representation of water. You see, for instance, if you go to Google and look access to drinking water, you always have pictures with children. It's very uniform. You always have pictures with children close to a tap, to a water tap. And I have a last observation regarding the title, because also, of course, the title we have at the Leaders Forum is very culture sensitive, and also the term leader in itself. And there I would give you a last example, because why you have to observe cultural issues. The term leader causes very different attitudes towards different types of leadership, of course, but in different regions of the world, we find more or less marked or flat hierarchies and degrees of loyalty between the leader and his followers, between the manager and his employees. Is he a primus inter pares, or is he a patron? When I showed, and that was the surprise perhaps, when I showed Colombian students at EAFIT or at Universidad del Norte in Barranquilla, a slide with a collection of attributes of management leaders gathered among St.Gallen or Swiss students in class, they were just watching me, the Colombian students, astonished and amazed and a little bit bewildered, because there was no critical attitude as in Switzerland towards managers at all. So the contrast between Swiss and Colombian student at a business school couldn't have been bigger. So when here, it's really a very critical attitude. You have the massive loss of reputation of top managers and business leaders, perceived as dubious and pseudo-charismatic, egocentric, autocratic, etc. In Colombia, it's admiration towards leaders, it's loyalty towards leaders, it's trust, it's strong respect, etc. So there you have really a big difference in this solely in this term of leadership and leaders. And such comparisons are exactly what we always try to highlight at the Latin American Swiss Center. You have it in this title too, because we always compare, of course, between Latin America and Switzerland. Now, I'm glad to hand over to the rector of INCAE, Arturo Condo, with whom our university has set up a double degree with the SIM, with the Master of International Strategy and Management, whose protagonist, my dear colleague Günther Müller-Stevens, will give the fourth talk of today. Thank you.